All right, so today I got Jay with me. We've been connected for a while. We've been connected through a friend of mine a while ago who thought it would be a great introduction, and it truly was. We had some amazing conversations in the past year, and what I would like to dive into today is about a bit about you, a bit about your story. So you know, I'm gonna leave that place for you now. What do you say when somebody asks you, who are you, Jay? Who is Jay?
Hold on. How did we meet?
We met through Rick.
Hey, shout out to Rick Clemens. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that was Rick Clemens.
He's doing some big stuff right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. I love me some Rick. Okay, now I remember. So my story. So basically, I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and this city has kind of a division in it. And so on the east side is kind of the wrong side of the tracks, and west side is the other side of the tracks. And so grew up actually in the northeast side of Kansas City. Really, really humble upbringing. Parents worked really, really hard. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, we finally were able to move out, um, and so that led to a whole different lifestyle, and got to meet a whole bunch of people who thought a lot differently. In college, I started my first business, and it pretty much immediately flopped, which was dope. And that stuff happens. That was probably one of the best things that could happen to a first time business. And now I have my hands in a bunch of different operations, run a really cool business that works in the event industry, run a couple businesses actually that are in the events industry, and then even have like a baseball tournament, big startup community guy in Kansas City. So that's a really long answer to the short question, I suppose.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Cool.
Let's dive a little bit. So I like the back of the story. Let's dive a little bit more into you as a person. Like who
Uh,
are you? Like what is the essence of who you are and your personal brand?
Dude, I don't know. That's why I came on the show. Now, listen, I was talking about this over coffee this morning with a buddy. Um, that's a constant search, man. I mean, because it keeps moving for me, and the more experiences that I have, the more I travel, the more I get into business, the more people I meet and listen to and learn from. It keeps evolving, I guess you could say. So I guess that's at the essence of it, is it keeps evolving. I just figured that out right now. So thank you, Daniel.
That's great. I love that. I love that. I want to dive a little bit more into the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, because
Yeah.
last time we had this great conversation. I wish we had recorded that one already. But I wanted to dive a little bit more into you're one of the high achievers that I look up to as well. And you've
Thanks,
been
man.
you've been creating some incredible things over the years. And I know that we're both about making the world a better place, making a
Yeah.
difference. But I want to dive a little bit more into what is it specifically, what is the reason why you're doing what you're doing, why you started what you're doing, why you started your first business at 16, and why you're dedicating such a big part of your life to building and creating all of this.
So yeah. First business. I wish I'd started my first business at 16, but that was in college, so like 19 or 20 or something like that. Just to make everything clear. So shout
Hmm.
out to like the 16-year-old entrepreneurs out there. Holy cow. Um, what drives me, right? That's what we're chatting about.
Yeah.
Um, Man, okay, so I could probably point to three things that really kind of move the needle for me whenever it comes to the businesses or when it comes to any sort of philanthropic or charity work that I do or my organizations do. Um, One is definitely my dad. So my dad moved out of the house at a really early age. Went through a lot of life. You know what I mean? Went through a lot of life, and he had to grow up really quickly. Took him a while to really find his footing. So it wasn't until he was in his 30s when things really started to work for him. And at that point, I was 10 or 11, so something that I mentioned earlier. And like kind of proving to him that you didn't raise a spoiled rich kid. like an entitled rich kid. So I mirror a lot of my work ethic off of my father, and that drives me. There wasn't like a moment in that, like it wasn't a crucible. It wasn't like a, hey, can I cuss on this?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It wasn't like a holy shit, like I need to get it together moment. It just kind of like, wow, he put in a ton of work. My mom put in a ton of work. It would be horrible if I acted spoiled. So that was one of them. The second one was when I got to go back to where my mother's from, which is the Philippines. We took our family. We've got a lot of family over there still, and I love visiting them. The food is the best in the world. It's like Filipino food is the best in the world. So I love going back there. We took our family on a vacation. And I remember we were driving to this like island resort, and we're like in these white vans. We're all packed in. We're all pumped up coming from the airport. And on the way there, we drive over these like land bridges, and on either side there's water. Only a few feet below the bridge. And I look out there. If you look out there, just imagine seeing an entire neighborhood, like a shanty town built on the water out of like bamboo and tin, like tin sheets and like plastic bags, and basically all the shit that like washed up, and they made their houses on it. I looked at my dad and I was like, Dad, what's going on over there? I've never seen that. It's a level of poverty I've never seen before. And he's like, they call them water squatters. They don't even own the land. They just squat on the water, and the government has no place to move these masses of people. So they just sit there. And the contrast, like totally hit me. It's like, man, here I am. I'm worried about like such first world business problems 80% of my days all the time. And these folks are living in these types of places. So the fact that I still got family over there, really want to help them out. So that's a big driver. So that was one of those holy shit moments. You know what I mean? The third major influence to like put a finger on is probably my grandmother. So my grandmother just passed away, and she was a hugely influential person in my life and also in the community. I mentioned like the East Side, West Side thing. So she did a ton of her work on the East Side, working in very bad neighborhoods, very tough neighborhoods. Never told a soul about it. And we knew what was going on, but we didn't know the scope and magnitude of what Granny was able to pull off. Just amazing. And so in her final year, she and I got really close. All of her grandchildren and her got pretty close. And so I started unhashing these stories, that she didn't want to tell. She's a lot like me, Daniel. Man, like you had to really twist my arm to get to get me to talk like this, to agree to the interview. So we're very similar in that regard. But when she passed away, I felt this calling, both a calling and a responsibility to carry on her work on that side and work in those neighborhoods. So I built it into our business operations. Even brought in community leaders on the East Side to be part of my some of my companies. And so that has just opened up an entirely new and awesome world. It's always been there. I've always done the mission trips, service trips, led those things to impoverished neighborhoods. But impacting your own city is something very different and impactful to me. So
I like that.
Those three things, man. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Okay. So tell me a bit more about what are some of the things that you're up to right now? What are some of the things that you've created in the past that are some of the most exciting things you feel?
Man, okay, so this is upcoming, right? So, like, me, I got a lot of projects that I work on because I'm a team builder. So that's really allowed me to do about, 20% of the actual work, but 80% of the work that moves it forward. So it's really, really cool. But what I'm most excited about is something coming up. So in Kansas City, the entrepreneur ecosystem is really fascinating. We've got a lot of really strong voices and a lot of really successful companies that are really quiet, right? So this is something you and I have talked about before, where it's like a lot of entrepreneurship nowadays, the talk is around either very, very high growth tech companies or around content creation. So like creating the courses, creating the communities and stuff like that, or writing a book. And so the way that we learn how to become entrepreneurs is fundamentally different today than it was even 15 years ago. And we can talk more about that, but just kind of providing some context. For really vibrant entrepreneur communities to exist, evolve, and sustain themselves, it needs to be led by the entrepreneurs. There are a whole bunch of other people who could help, government, universities, strong voices, social advocates, but it needs to be led by the people who are building the big businesses and, quite frankly, are too busy to lead the community. So I've kind of been thrust into this role, which is really fascinating, but also I think called to this role. And so what we're doing is a few people in the community and I are working very hard to reach back to the big time entrepreneurs who come from this city, who are very quiet, like nobody even knows who they are except for a few people, and do fun shit together, and just get them back, like no agenda. We're not like trying to solve the world's problems or anything, but just be like, yo, y'all matter. Like, you guys built this infrastructure and we have no idea who you are. We'll organize a dinner for you. I'll bring the bucket of chicken and let's just hang out and do fun stuff. So that's probably something I'm most geeked up about right now.
Why is that?
Because I know that they need it. And so what I mean by that is, like, if you talk with these people who are running their multi-million-dollar businesses and started it with literally zero resources that we have today, they will tell you, they're like, yeah, I wish I could go to these events, but I just, for this reason or that reason or whatever, I don't. And so, like, being able to bring them all back, like once a quarter, like it doesn't, and just hang out. This, man, it's tough being an entrepreneur. And what's tougher than being an entrepreneur is the partner of an entrepreneur, right? Like the spouse, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the dog. Like, it's hard living with an entrepreneur because it's just like, it's a different level of self-awareness and self-deception too. Like, why do you keep banging your head up against this problem? You're not making any progress, but as an entrepreneur, you're like, I've got to do it. The wall's going to break. So being able to get these people into the room together where they can empathize with one another at that level is something very crucial just to being human and staying successful. So I think that's really what's geeking me up about this. I'm really pumped to get these folks back in the room together with no agenda, nothing, just like straight up fun. Let's empathize with one another. Let's talk about sports or why we like whiteboards so much, or and if we talk business, fine, but finding that community again. I'm
curious, what do you feel is the impact that's gonna be or could be?
Hey, Daniel, I can't hear you, man.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm just curious, like, what is the impact that you feel this is gonna have? Like, I mean, there's a reason why you're so so excited about this. So, like, you say no agenda. I mean, obviously it is about the connection piece, but what is it that you feel is the impact of something like that?
Man, so that's like part of the excitement about it is I don't know what's going to come from it, and I was talking with, man, okay, so like when it comes to goals and vision and things like that, I have big visions for what I think is going to happen, but my approach to it, whether it's right or wrong, my personal approach is, cool, I've got the vision. I'm totally open to the vision changing. So my vision right now, this is so dumb. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but my vision right now for this that I'm talking about is like, I got a buddy who has a coffee shop. It's a really cool coffee shop. He's got a basement and it literally has like one light in it. And so my vision is like these like super powerful entrepreneurs who just rock, sitting around like a table with one light and like a bottle of something that hasn't been opened in like 30 years. You know what I mean? So, what could come from that? Like, obviously business, but again, it's that like human part. Okay. But like on a bigger level though, and this probably answers the question a little more directly. The startup ecosystem here in Kansas City is very, very important to me. And people have put in so much work over the last 5 years, especially to make it what it is today. We're on track to be one of the smartest cities in the world in terms of like technology. We're on track to be one of the most connected cities in the world when it comes to driverless technology and Internet of Things being everywhere. We have the world's leading entrepreneurial research organization. We have buy-in from the government. We have universities that pump kids out. We've got the pieces. It's about putting them together now in the right sequence, putting the edges together, and then allowing others to build the middle out with those resources is very, very important to me. So getting these folks together, like I said earlier, it's got to be entrepreneur-led. We've lost the most influential people in this community because they're working all the time and nobody's been able to organize something worth it for them. Because and from my belief is it's always got an agenda. So if we can get these folks back into a room and just let them do what they do, and I think the bottle of something that hasn't been open in 30 years would help with idea creation. You know what I mean? Like if we get these folks in the room, they've already done massively awesome stuff. Dude, hands off. Let's just hang out and be people again. And if we all see the problem, then chances are really good that we'll put our teams together and do something about it. But it's important for people to have that sort of leadership from the entrepreneurs, because if you're just getting into it, you need that. You need the people who have been super successful and are still grinding and still figuring it out. You need those people to look up to force you into action. Let's move past the idea. Love the idea. I don't know if it's going to work. Just see if it works. That type of thing. We need that type of movement, especially in this city. I'm sure a lot of other cities around the world are in a similar position to Kansas City. Absolutely, yeah. What I love about this is that you put the human part first. You know, that's also something that I obviously share with this, you know, very much. And I love about this idea because, you know, very often when if those folks even meet, it's always about a business venture, specific, something already created, something already clear. The agenda is already there and everything. And all the creativity essentially gets lost because the focus is not on the relationship. But if there's no agenda and the only agenda is that bottle of, you know, haven't been opened in 30 years, if that's the only agenda and it's just having, you know, a great time, then all that creativity around the relationship building piece can flow because there's not an agenda for creating this with that much profit and something like that. But then there's a lot of, yes, philanthropic work, but also for-profit things that are created, but that are massively for impact. And that's what I really, really love about this. So here's my question. Another one that I have, like, there's a lot of businesses you've built, you know, a lot of the business in the events industry. Now you're building this new venture and you're up to a lot of other things. What's the umbrella? What is that umbrella where all of this fits under? And I don't mean, you know, what is a specific project that this belongs to. What I mean is, what is the umbrella vision? What is that thing that all of these things work towards creating, the future that it's creating? Yeah. Ooh, okay. Dude, that's what I love about talking with you. Like, you and I don't get to talk very often, and I'm like still waiting for that invitation to come and have coffee over like the Alps or something. Okay, just putting that in there. So now it's public record. It's in the agenda. Like you get deep, man. Okay. At this point in my life, what it is for me is, can I move other people's aspirations forward? And like, that sounds like high and mighty, but I'm very selfish when it comes to that. Very selfish when it comes to being generous. You know what I mean? So like all these projects that I have, I'm not the one doing them. I mean, I put my work in, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not sitting on my laptop all day hanging out in Tahiti. That sounds like a pretty dope lifestyle, but that's not what I want to live right now. But when I have an idea and I think it's a viable project, the first thing I think of is, okay, who are the first 3 people I need to reach out to? And the reason I do that is because if it's not moving their lives forward, then the project just isn't going to happen. And so that's a big thing for me. Like, all these projects that I'm doing are moving other people's stuff forward, because very selfishly, that's how I move forward, right? Like, they're going to take me along if I find the right people, and thank goodness for that. So at this point in my life, it is like that umbrella, that legacy that I want to leave is like, like I would love if somebody says to me, or maybe like even at my funeral, I would love if somebody gets up there and says, yo, I worked with Jay for 6 months and we got this done, and it led to me doing what I always wanted to do, or the most necessary next step. Like that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. So that's, I mean, I have like a baseball tournament, man. Like, and if you have like international viewers, baseball is some weird sport that Americans like to watch for hours on end. Not as long as cricket matches though, but they're long and fairly boring to watch. I love this sport. I had a great opportunity come to my table from a guy down in the southern part of the United States. And I said no to him for 6 or 7 months. Yeah, so this guy, man, he's relentless, right? So from the southern part of the U.S., knocking on my door, knocking on my inbox, and he's like, he finally showed me the numbers, and I was like, this is a viable project. Who do I need on the team? Like, who would move this forward? Reached out to a couple of really close buddies who, one needed it for his career, like really needed it. Another needed it because of some more emotional stuff and emotional attachment he had to the game. Like any sports nut's going to understand that. And so they said yes. That's like every summer in the span of 2 months, like literally in, let's see, over the course of 8 days of programming, that's $100,000 plus in revenue, closer to like 100. I think the numbers was 118.5 is what it comes out to. But it's moving their project forward. You know, it's moving their lives forward. And I wouldn't have been able to do that by myself. You know what I mean? So that's really the umbrella for it. That might evolve. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe that's beyond my age, you know, years beyond my age, or maybe it's like only the very beginning of the evolution that I've got. But that's the umbrella right now for sure.
So let me just try to recap that a little bit. So I guess, because I'm trying to create that like really specific umbrella, like what is that kind of like vision of the world that you want to create? I'm trying to get to that. So essentially, like what I feel like in everything that you do with the events companies, with how you run your businesses, even with this new venture, with the baseball tournament, with everything, I feel it has a lot to do with human connection. It has a lot to do with empowering others instead of just doing the work by yourself, which is also about, you know, people. It's always about people. It's always about people. It's about leverage. It's about the human aspect of being human. So what are some of the nuggets in there that feel like this is really that kind of like succinct umbrella?
Dude, can you like be my therapist or something? That's what you should call this, like therapy with Daniel. Like when you get down to the heart of the bit. Okay, it is about human connection. Last night I was with one of my business partners, and we went out for, it was supposed to be a meeting, and then it turned into drinks, and then it turned into a late night, which was awesome. And he is a community builder. Like that is his thing, and it's all by accident with him. Like people put him in the spotlight, and then he's like, shit, I have this like gravity for people. And we were talking about different ways that he and I build communities and why we needed each other so much and why we're so good together. And this is going to answer your question. So he's one of those guys who can walk into a room and be recognized by people. Hey, you're that guy from that thing, right? And he's like, yeah. And he doesn't have to know their names, but he's impacted their life in a very meaningful way. I'm the guy, like, if you ever see like the celebrity photos where they have like the celebrity and then they got like the person back here holding the notebook and shit, it like actually gets things. Like, I'm this guy back here. And I love it. So when I walk into a room, if somebody knows me, I know them. And that's a big difference. Or not a different, like a distinction between my buddy and then me. So we both have an equal level of impact, but the way we do it is he's this, the voice, I'm with you, man. Like I'm with you. So that's kind of the umbrella, is like that one-on-one connection. I was doing something the other day. I got a little curious. I was like, how many of my Facebook friends and LinkedIn connections do I actually know? Like, could I tell you what they're doing right now? And I looked through all of my Facebook friends, and about 80% of them, I could give you a paragraph of what they're doing right now. With LinkedIn, it was way more. Like, I knew what they were doing. I knew what they were up to because I keep in touch with them. Twitter was a little different because, like, you can't choose your followers. You know what I mean? But when I was able to make those connections, and so I challenged him to do the same thing, and he's like, dude, I don't know these people. I don't know. But that's my style. That's my style, and I recognize and I embrace that. It's not better or worse than any other style, but it's mine. And so because I embodied it, that bleeds into all these other projects. And that's the legacy. Like, I want to be able to walk in and know the person who knows me. Know the person who knows me. Yeah. There's a story about how I recognize that, by the way, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, tell me.
At a cemetery.
Tell me about it.
Dude, my life takes place in the weirdest places. Like, I started my first business in a hotel bathroom in New Orleans. You know, like, don't think about that too much. But like, they just happen like great weird places. So this happened at a cemetery, right? So my dad is like really into genealogy, and he's traced our direct male descendants all the way back to like the 1400s, which, I mean, that's pretty cool, I guess. So we would do these like cemetery excursions where we go and look for headstones and stuff like that. And I was creeped out by it at first. Now I love it, man. Like, everywhere I go, like if I go to a cemetery, man, this probably just ruined the whole interview. Okay. Anyway, so.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. All right. So we were looking for one of our family members, and we picked up my grandfather. So my dad's dad. This was maybe 3 years ago. And we pick grandpa up, we go to the cemetery, and we go into like this beautiful ornate building where, you know, the receptionist is, and, you know, that's where they do the ceremonies. We go up to the secretary, my dad does, and asks for, I think it was James Raymond Austin, something like that. I can't remember exactly who it was. Grandpa's over in the corner, like looking at old photos and stuff. And there's a man sitting right by the front door, and he was driving the hearse, you know, and he was just hanging out waiting for his next run. He looks up at my dad and he goes, "Did you say your last name was Austin?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the guy goes, older gentleman, grandpa's age, goes, "Do you know a Bill Austin by any chance?" And my dad's like, "Well, actually, it's that guy over there." And he pointed at grandpa. And grandpa turns around, and this old guy was like, "You're Bill Austin." And right away, my grandpa was like, "Boom, you're this guy." And so my dad and I are standing back listening to this conversation. It turns out that they played baseball together when they were 16 years old. Like, not even together. They played against each other. And they're talking about like all old people stuff, right? Like, they're going down like who's alive, who's dead, like that type of old people talk. But they're also talking about like the hill in center field. And do you remember that one play? My dad nudges me and he goes, "You know, this used to happen everywhere we went when I was a kid." My grandpa was a local politician and a football coach and all that stuff. It used to happen all the time. Grandpa would walk in, he'd know exactly who everybody was. And then kind of like let it rest and listen to the conversation. And my dad hit me again. He goes, "By the way, that skill right there skipped me and my brothers and sisters and went straight to you." And that was when I first realized that, like, I have this ability to do that. And that's when I fully embraced that role and took it seriously and started putting tactics and strategies behind it. You know, like the same, very similar to the stuff that you teach, Daniel, in your LinkedIn stuff. So that was when I fully embraced it.
I just love that, because I mean, it's basically, this is your natural role in life, you know, not just business. Business is just an extension of life, but this is, and I've always felt that, you know, and I guess that's one of the reasons why we're connected so well as well. This is your natural role in life. You know, you are that one-on-one connector. That is why you're building your businesses that way. That is why, that is what you do, and that's also what you empower others to do through your ventures with the event companies. That is what you do with the event companies. I mean, when you facilitate the experience at these events, you don't just facilitate experience, you facilitate the human connection between people, the one-on-one. You do the same thing with sponsorship company. You do the same thing with with the new venture that you're building. You do the same thing. You do this not just as a service, but you do the same thing in the way you run everything. You run your businesses by being the leader. And what the leader does is the leader builds the one-on-one relationship with the people they're working with and empowers them to do a lot of the work and trust them. So I feel this is really a natural role in life. And here's the thing about that, you could go out there and say, okay, online marketing is really something great and impactful. Let me focus on email marketing and online marketing and stuff like that. And no, at the same time, it's not your natural role. But there's a lot of people out there who try that and they fail at it. And then there's other people who try that and they thrive at it. And it's great. And it's not because one is better at it because they learned, how to do that better than anybody else. It's because that is their natural role. Jeff Walker with product launches and things like that. That is his natural role. That is just an extension of who he is. And that's why it works so insanely well. For you, it is that one-on-one relationship. For you, it's building a team of leaders who, build and run the organization. For you, it is facilitating a human connection, one-on-one. It's all about that. But you are building the one-on-one relationships. You are keeping in touch with people one-on-one, and that is just such a powerful thing to hone that, because a lot of people out there, they have a grasp of what it is, but they never hone it. Like for me, my natural role in life or business is the visionary connector. This is who I am. And as an extension of that, everything I create is through that. I just had a guy reaching out to me, wants to build up the Global Entrepreneurship Network in Switzerland. He's the managing director and he wanted to get me on board for that. And like with every new thing, you always have to consider before you jump in. So I really liked what he's building, but I also said, look, I'm not going to be an active, whatever manager or something in that. If I join this, I'm going to be the visionary connector. So now we're putting together the board of directors. So obviously that is where I'm taking the lead. So I'm making the introductions to the board of director members that are potentials and everything. And nice. Even with everything else, like I'm building the Changemakers Hub with Perry, a friend of mine. He's the guy who's essentially in charge of implementation and everything. And I'm the guy charged in business development because I'm the visionary connector and that is business development lead. So, in everything, and it's the same thing for you. And I just wanted to share that because a lot of people, sometimes they have a sense of it, but they do not hone that, role.
What do you call that? You've referred to this in some of the circle of brilliance.
I call it like a superpower, or I don't know if you.
Okay. Yeah. No.
You mean the circle of impact?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah. That's, you nailed it, bro. That's so cool about the board in Switzerland too. Yeah. Like this is something I'm really fascinated in. I think, have I shared my theory of like the top current and undercurrent in business and in life?
I don't think so, but please do.
Man, let's do it. Okay. So this could be totally wrong. It's totally hypothetical, right? Like it's a theory, but I've noticed that like if you go to a river, right? Like go to a river or go to a beach, there's always this top current. You see the water, you literally see the water, and the top current's everywhere. It's going in this direction. Like if there's a wave coming in on the beach, it's going here. There's a river, it's all flowing in a certain direction. Think of that as like the majority of what's going on in, let's just say, business, right? You see the trends. In every situation where there's water moving, there's always an undercurrent, but it's way, way less prominent than the top current, right? So like if you're in a river, there's only certain spots where there's an undercurrent. When that water's coming in, that wave, that undercurrent happens once the wave breaks, right? So like relating to business, there's always going to be that person who loves, despite like all the keyboard technology and all that stuff, loves typewriters. right? There's always going to be that person. There's always going to be the person who, no matter what you can do on a tablet screen, is going to use a chalkboard. Is love that stuff, right? So that's the undercurrent. The undercurrent, I think, one of those undercurrents is human connection. So with technology, and I am a tech fiend. I love technology. Technology is moving faster than it has ever before. Computing power is moving beyond the law that's been active for 20 years when it comes to revolutionizing this stuff. And we're getting hyper connected. Some little kid smashed my phone the other day, so I don't have my phone. Usually I'd hold it up, but like an iPad. Daniel, this is a perfect example. You are across the pond, bruh. Like you are across the pond and we're connecting. Technology is crazy. I know what everybody's doing. I have the ability to do that right here. The more we're connected like that, the less connected we feel. You know what I mean? Like, cause we're FOMO, we're missing out. You know what I mean? Or like, I'm seeing the highlights of everybody's life and I'm comparing it to my lowlights. You know what I mean? So like this human stuff is that undercurrent that's coming back. Oh my goodness. That's why live events are perfect. That's why these like basement meetings with a bottle of cognac are perfect. That's the undercurrent. Last thing about this is the top current's strong. The undercurrent is always stronger. It's always stronger. So especially in business, I look for those niches. I look for those undercurrents because there's a lot of money, but there's a lot of like impact in those places too. I'm looking for the guy who loves typewriters is basically what I'm saying. Yeah, but human connection, man, that's an undercurrent that's happening right now.
Yeah, you know, I so much love that because like also, you know, comparing it to business with trends and things like that, the things that you see, they are like, you know, they are those 10%, right? They are those 10%. It's like the iceberg, you know, you see those 10%. But the tip of the iceberg, the 10% wouldn't be there without the 90%. You wouldn't see it. There wouldn't be anything to see if the other 90% wouldn't be there. So that's the same thing. Trends would never be there if the human connection didn't happen. A company would never be there if the human connection didn't happen between those two partners that founded it and between the first employees and then everything that grew. Nothing built or created in this world would be here if that undercurrent hadn't been created. Like what you see now is like with the painting, you know, an artist creates a painting. The painting would never be there with the 90% that came before. So I love that metaphor because it's something that I often talk about as well, but with the iceberg, you use the undercurrent. And I think it's just so powerful, especially when it comes to that human connection. We both share that, you know, same vision of what we want to create for the future. And it's just a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I love your metaphor of the iceberg too, because that represents so many more things. That can be a metaphor for so many more activities than my very simpleton explanation of a river. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love that too. You reminded me, Daniel, this is a point that I make when I go and I talk with other young folks, especially because they tend to be the ones who listen. So when I go back to college and they invite me back to like go speak and stuff like that, and even high school, my high school does, I remind them that my way is one way and it may not even be the right way. So like we're constantly trying to figure this out. So as much as like we're talking about the one-on-one connections and doing that stuff, like I want every viewer and listener to know that last week I missed a meeting. Like I forgot about it. And I invited this guy out to lunch. I told him I was going to buy his lunch and I completely forgot. So like this stuff is like dirty and it's imperfect. And I think I've met one person who's done this perfectly over the last, like, I don't know, several years. You know what I mean? And he's just brilliant. But he's the first to admit that he's done other things imperfectly too. So it's like, if this is your style, if you're watching this and your style resonates with mine, embrace it, go do it. But if you're different, if you're just wired differently, don't. You know what I mean? Like find somebody like you or me, Daniel, like that's what teams are for. You know, you don't have to be the person all the time, you know? So anyways, that's always important for me to get across. I think too often in interview situations, like people are tuning in to see the how-to. And I kind of want to encourage people to shift their mindset and stop looking for the how-to and just see like the patterns that other people are using, you know, like look for the human behind the how-to, and you're going to get more out of that, you know?
Absolutely. And I love that. I love that you say, you know, my way is one way, and it may not even be the right way. Well, because it's not for everyone. Because it's not the right way for everyone. And everyone, like as I mentioned before, with that natural role, you have a natural role in life. I have a natural role. Even though our roles are very similar, they're still completely different. You do things completely different than I do. You know, I jump on certain trains completely different than you do. So absolutely, and I love that. Like everybody should embrace their natural style, their natural role, their natural superpower, whatever word you want to use for that, unique ability or whatever. And then create everything they create through that arm, you know, because then things start to work and then things are fun. It's just like, I talked to this woman this morning. I did an interview with her, Liz. She's amazing, and she's created some amazing things in the future. She works with executives and very top level CEOs on a very spiritual level, like really deep spiritual level. And now she's created these empowerment cards. And in a letter, she wrote me, she sent me the cards via mail from Australia. Okay. That is, and we met on LinkedIn. We jumped on a Skype call, and then she sent me that gift from halfway around the world, which is to me like mind-blowing in terms of human connection. But with her, she wrote in a letter, she attached this. She said, you know, now I created this. Now I have to become a marketing and sales expert. And then I talked to her today and interviewed her. And, you know, after that we talked, and I said, you know, even though it was probably her joke, you know, it was a joke from her. But I said, you know, there's no need in you forever to become something like that, because you have a natural role. You know, you empower people to do X with this and this and this way of being, and that is essentially how you're gonna bring this into the world. That's how we all bring our, you know, creations into the world. And if we try to embrace another style, we're gonna be miserable. We're gonna hate it. We're gonna fail miserably. But not only that, but most importantly, we're gonna hate it. It's like, you know, there's a lot of people who are brilliant at what they do, at what they deliver. They try to become, you know, salespeople because they know that selling is important for business. And yes, it is. But they try to, become that salesperson that they do not want to be. And then everything falls apart. If you're like a coach, I'll give you an example of a coach. Coaches trying to become salespeople is a horrible thing for me to, you know, observe. But, you know, when a coach embraces that they are a coach and they just focus on coaching people, everything evolves, everything thrives. It's the same with consultants. It's the same with entrepreneurs. You know, an entrepreneur trying to be a salesperson, horrible. You know, they just focus on being an entrepreneur in everything you create. Same thing, a really, really good salesperson or business development person trying to be an entrepreneur, horrible. Don't, you know, never try that. Never try to, because whatever you affiliate with the word entrepreneur or salesperson, if that's not who you feel you are, there's no connection. So yeah, it's just, I love that conversation, man.
Yeah. There's a really challenging book called, actually have it right here. It's called Peak by Anders Ericsson. Mm-hmm. Really fascinating book because I think when it comes to becoming an expert at something, or, you know, becoming the best in the world at one thing, if you talk about books or systems, you're going to land on one of these three. You're going to land on the one thing, the book. You're going to land on StrengthsFinder, or you're going to land on Malcolm Gladwell's idea of 10,000 hours. You know, those are the three most popular things. And Anders Ericsson actually came up with the underlying research behind what makes people the best in the world, that Gladwell bases 10,000 hours off of. I think I'm getting that correct. But what he talks about in here is actually really fascinating and challenging to our thought process on this, because he says that with deliberate practice, which there's a whole definition goes with it, you can reach a level of expertise in something that maybe you weren't called to do. So just providing perspective and context on, I read this and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I believe that, but like, it's good to know.
Yeah, I get it. And I fully agree with that. But there's a difference between being really, really good and maybe the best in the world in something and actually loving doing it. There's a massive difference. And only when you put those two together, then you've got a superpower. A superpower is nothing that you are the best at in the world, but you hate it. That's not a superpower. That's just a skill or an expertise. But that has nothing to do with a superpower. A superpower is something that you're really, really good at doing because you practice it. You got maybe the 10,000 hours. But also every single time you do that thing or you beat that thing, it gives you energy.
Yeah. And see, this is what I love. Like, this is the combination of ideas, like a bunch in that last breath, in that last paragraph that you said, you just combined the work of a bunch of smart people. And then you as a smart person gave it the twist. You know what I mean? Like, that's what this shit's about. Like, I get very frustrated, and I operate in the content creation space. Like, those are a lot of our clients. I get very frustrated with folks who do that type of work sometimes when they aren't humble enough, or they don't feel as if it's a good business decision to say, hey, I don't know if my system is going to work for you. You know what I mean? Like what kind of headline is that? And it's because I'm kind of on like a Tony Robbins kick right now. Somebody told me to watch the documentary that he made a couple years ago or whatever. So I watched that last night. Really fascinating. One of the things that he talks about a lot that I tend to agree with is the search for significance. We're always looking for that significance. That's something that of his resonates with me. The way that manifests itself now is very fascinating, right? Think about the last time, if you're a content creator, think about the last time you created content for you. Like, everybody's creating content for someone else in a way that it will benefit you later. Like, I need to write this listicle so that I can get an inbound lead. Now that's cool. I'm a marketer, so I get it. But I'm just asking, when was the last time you did it for you? And I guarantee you, man, like, you start creating content like that resonates with you, you're going to find the tribe. It may not be as big, may not get as many likes or shares, but the quality of the readers, the quality of the people who respond to you are going to go up. And that's when you get into that cool area that you just talked about, Daniel. It's like, I'm really good at this, and it gives me energy because I'm working with the right people. So I don't know where I'm going with that. All I'm saying is like it's really cool to be able to put work out there. We have democratized, we have leveled the field. People can put their stuff out there in most countries, put their stuff out there and find followers and find believers. I think the challenge is, like, do we do it for the likes? Are we looking for the significance? Okay, let's redefine what it takes to feel that way. So, okay, my soapbox. I need to get off my soapbox up here.
No, it's perfect because it totally fits into the umbrella. I'm just trying to get it back to the umbrella, because if you do it for somebody else so you can get 10,000 likes, you do it for the masses. If you do it for yourself, you focus on the one-on-one connection. First of all, with yourself, but also you create a one-on-one connection with your reader, because it is you're sharing you and not some piece, not some how-to article. How-to articles are great, but only if they're an extension of who you are, and not and don't have. Sometimes there's a lot of how-to articles that have a disconnect between the person publishing them, because you read the article and go like, I have no freaking idea who that person is. I don't know them. It's just I learned a thing, but that's okay. Yeah. But also marketing-wise, that's not going to do anything for anyone. Like, if they read the art, it's like watching a commercial or an ad on TV and going like, that was a really amazing commercial, and I have no idea what company it belongs to. What the hell's the point, right? What's the point? So, creating content for yourself first, I talk about that a lot as well, is so powerful, because you share yourself, and in today's world, we crave human connection more than any time in history because of the disconnect. Because I would even say because of the technology. Yes, I love technology, but it also creates problems. And because of that disconnect, we're craving that human connection more than ever. So, you know, making that connection, and you can make that connection one-on-one. You can make that connection 1 to 10,000, but a 1 to 100,000, 1 to a million. You know, Martin Luther King made that connection 1 to 250,000 people. You know, I mean, it's like you can make that connection 1-to-1 or 1 to scalability, but it's about creating that 1-to-1 connection no matter how many people there are.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Dude, let's keep going on that. I know I told you I got to get off at 10:30, but my boys can wait. They're always running late anyways, man. Unless you're kind of pinched for time. Are you all right?
No, it's fine. You know, I'd like to finish up in about maybe 5 minutes so we don't go really long with this.
For sure. I just feel like we are hitting our stride right now with this conversation. So I want to keep that going. So, man, something happens. Something happens when you hop on a video interview. Something happens when someone gets up on stage in front of people and talks. Like something happens when your face is the author of the blog and it gets posted to a publication that has a brand. We're people. You know what I mean? Like we are people. Like I have failed so much lately. Like I just lost a client yesterday and it hurt. That's why that meeting that I talked about turned into a drink session, because we're like, dude, what are we doing, man? Like, you know, and so like this position that we have, like people are going to watch this and they're going to be like, yo, dude, that Jay, he knows a bunch, or they're going to vilify me. Like that dude knows nothing. But I don't want that. Like that's the last. I'm sitting on my couch in my apartment, like a hand-me-down couch, because that's how I roll. You know, like I don't need to be seen as an expert or an influencer. That's not my thing. But I want people to know that like all this content that we're reading, you know, books, any of this stuff, like those are people trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Those are people trying to figure it out. So you've got to also be a people trying to figure it out. Like as you start reading this content, you know, we've got to approach it from that sort of humble level. And like last thing to say about this, because I'm definitely on soapbox now, I see people get hurt because they follow the content that they read and listen to. And it's not like they're joining a cult or something. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, and if you're in a cult and it's a good cult, go ahead, whatever. But like what I'm saying is like I have seen the most underqualified people write books. Creating a book is simply a matter of following steps to create a book, the same way that creating a meal is following a series of steps. I can make the best damn mac and cheese in the world as long as I have directions, right? That doesn't make me a chef, you know? So as we read these things, it's great to read and follow content and listen to people and get their perspective, but that's all it is perspective. That is their perspective. And they formulated that because they thought about it. And we need to do the same thing. We can't just be followers and consumers of info. You know, we've got to formulate that stuff and understand that exactly what I said earlier. Like my way is one way and it may not even be right. You know what I mean? Even this approach right now is my way and one way and may not even be right. Like, and I don't want to sound like dystopian and shit like that, or like, you know, the world's going to end and you can't trust anybody. What I'm trying to say is we get to pick what we think and we get to pick what information we consume and follow.
Oh my God, I so much agree with that. And because, you know, it's a difference. It's a difference between a chef and a cook. It's a difference between the artist and a painter. And it's the difference between, you know, an author and somebody who writes a book, you know. And it's just, I think that distinction is huge. And also when it comes to consuming, that is massive, because there's so much content out there that we read. I even published a post a couple of months ago, I think, and the title was "Don't Listen to My Advice," because I mean that's just like, it's like, look, here's the way I see the world. if that resonates with you, that's good. You know, we got a place to start. If it doesn't, please don't, you know, please, you know, get off my writing, you know, get off my website, because there's no point in us connecting. There's only going to be a point when we share the same worldview. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. We're never going to get along that way. Well, you know, you're never going to invest $10,000 or whatever it is in working with me or whatever it is, right? So there's no
absolutely.
Point. There's no point. Yes, there's point in debating and discussing. Yes, of course. But there's no point in, you know, trying to put things together that don't belong together. There's just no point. So with consuming content, I guess the question is always like, does that worldview and perspective resonate with me? And then also, does that way of doing things resonate with me? Is this who I am? I think that's really the question, because if it's not, if it's just like that new thing, new shiny thing, let's start a podcast, you know, let's do some LinkedIn marketing, let's do more email marketing, let's start a blog. Everything's out there, everything's for free, and everything's out there in masses. That's not the issue. The issue is the filter. Having up a filter that is authentic. Talking about authenticity, having up a filter that is authentic, that where you can say, okay, this really resonates with me. Like what we're talking about, this is not going to resonate to somebody who has a startup and believes that the only thing that's ever going to matter is the product. They're gonna watch 2 seconds of that and go like, hell, screw those guys. That's awesome. They're probably not going to even watch the interview because they're not going to resonate with the title. And that's great. I mean, something like that only resonates with people who believe the same things that we believe. Talking about Simon Sinek, Start with Why, that's what he talks about a lot, right? So yeah, absolutely. That's a great input there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, man. And like, think about it this way too. Daniel, I'm going to ask you a personal question. Like, when it comes to your business, have you ever changed your approach? Like, you thought one route was going to be the right way, and then it turns out that it wasn't, and you had to like switch it up. Has that ever happened to you?
About 7,000 times, maybe.
Man, me too. Me too. So like, when I write an article, like, because I'm an editor for the Good Men Project online, and great place for me to write. When I write an article, sure, sometimes I'll write the title as like how to da-da-da. Most of the time, I try very, very hard to stick to what I've done. Not what I know, but what I've done that has led to this. And I think that's the least sexy way to write an article, but it's the best way for me to write that article, because I don't have to struggle with this, like, oh my God, like now I have to come up with my next piece of advice of something that I haven't, done. I'm only talking about like this stuff. So I think the space could get a lot healthier, and these content creators can get a lot healthier and can sleep a little better at night if they know that the info they're putting out there is what they believe in, and they're willing to admit that it might change, willing to admit that it might be wrong, and then write that piece, bro. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why Tim Ferriss has resonated with so many people, and James Altucher has resonated with so many people, is because they willingly they willingly go back and say, yeah, I'm testing. I don't know, man. I was wrong. Like James Altucher, he wrote an entire book about choosing yourself, these principles, and he just got a divorce. And he had a podcast with that lady, and his life changes. And he talks about it. He's like, yeah, I guess whatever, that type of stuff. Like, my stuff changes. So it's unhealthy when we follow those how-to steps from people, right? Because it's going to change. Like, the approach may change. They may look back and be wrong, but they may have forgotten they wrote the piece. You know what I mean? So like, we're in an interesting position where we have the privilege, we have the absolute privilege of watching interviews, listening to podcasts, reading blogs from people who never would have had a voice. We have the absolute privilege of doing that. We have the responsibility to come up with our own thoughts.
I love that responsibility conversation, because that is huge, because it's so easy to be influenced by those things.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think
that's a good note. That's a good note to end on, man. We just dropped the mic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just finish up with one more paragraph, because there's going to be people out there who watch this and go like, Jay's an awesome dude, and he's creating some really legendary stuff, and he's just doing epic work, and I really like him as well. And I want to support him in some form or shape, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Whatever form or shape. Where can people connect with you if they, get to that place?
Yeah. So, are you going to be able to link up stuff on this
Sure, it's going to be
post?
all below that video.
Sweet. So it's kind of hard to describe my handles for Twitter and Instagram. So I'll give those to you because they have underscores. God, I'm such a loser. But other than that, I think email would probably be the best way. Like, just hit me up directly and then take me out to coffee.
I like that.
So Jay at nubooth.com, NUBOOTH.com, and then you can link that up, brother.
Cool. I'm going to link to your website for sure. So people can check, one of these websites, people can check out, who you are. Probably also, the social media sites are probably the best one to check you out as a person. So this is great. Man. This is great. Thank you so much for doing that, Jay. I really appreciate it. And talk to you soon.
You're enlightening, man. Stay that way. Keep being that positive influence, Daniel. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, cool, man.
Bye-bye.